Hi, I'm Jillian Sorensen with Flagstar Bank. Welcome to my studio. I'm here with my amazing coworker,
Marla Cooper. Nice to be here. Thank you, Jillian.
My pleasure. We really wanted to get together and just go through some of the most common questions that we receive. Why should you become a non-del? How do you become a non-del? Why should I think about it? What should I be concerned about? So Marla and I just wanted to sit here with a Q&A style and start talking to you about the questions that we get. And we want to pre-answer the questions that you don't know yet to ask.
Because we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly. Control. A non-del correspondent has control over their revenue, they have control over their appraisal, they have control over their own disclosures, and they have control over their own closings.
That's true. They have control over the transaction. That's what gives them the ability to provide excellent service, and that goes to reputation. As a broker, you don't have that luxury because you're disclosing in the name of your lender. You are bound to your lender's turn times, and you have to use the appraisal company that your lender is giving to you.
Best way I can describe this is there's two transactions. There's a transaction between the loan officer and the borrower, and then there's a transaction when the mortgage company sells the loan to another mortgage company. This secondary transaction is not subject to the same disclosure processes and rules as the primary transaction, meaning loan originator compensation laws prohibit a broker from collecting revenue from the borrower and the lender at the same time. That's the primary transaction. The secondary transaction is when a mortgage company goes to sell the loan to another entity. So in essence, the primary transaction, the secondary transaction, there's additional revenues that are available only to correspondents that are not available to brokers.
That's true. It's often, and you might hear it referred to as yield spread or service release premium. That's probably one of the biggest parts of it. And the ability to pay fees for your customer. If a broker wants to do that, they have to increase the rate to the borrower. So as far as being competitive, it gives them an edge.
Absolutely. Happens all the time. Brokers all of a sudden have a borrower who's short funds to close. The transaction stops. They have to give the borrower a higher rate. Correspondents are able to be flexible. Well, a mortgage broker has no control, no options. They're not responsible for anything, and they are subject to the turn times of their lender, always.
I think that's fair to say. A mortgage broker is going to have their disclosures and everything that goes out to their customer in the name of their lender, whereas a mortgage banker, everything is disclosed in their own name and done by them. There are many reasons. The first one I can think of really is about revenue, growing their revenue. A mortgage broker has fixed revenue and a mortgage banker does not. A mortgage banker is in control in that they have an aftermarket sale of the loan. So they are not bound to the broker compensation. They have what is referred to as yield spread or service release premium at the end of the loan when it's been closed. That is not part of the testing that a broker is subjected to. They're getting a bigger piece of the pie. Another really good reason to become a mortgage banker outside of revenue and control is branding. You've been in the business for a while, you've got a reputation, you've got relationships, but if you're a mortgage broker, everything is being done in your lender's name. This is an excellent opportunity to really put your brand out there. You're closing the loan, you're funding the loan, you're doing the disclosures in your own name, not in the name of your lender. This is important in growing your business and your referral business.
The easiest way is follow your own quality control plan. Do business with a really good compliance partner. Do your verbal verifications, day of closing, do a credit refresh, day of closing. Those are probably the biggest things that I would say that takes care of 99.9% of the repurchases and non-purchases that I've ever worked on.
And having the right business partners to go to for questions. And like Jillian said, following your quality control plan, which, by the way, should always be a work in progress.
Always.
It's something that you should be adding to and changing all the time, because as we've seen, really just recently, there are tremendous risks in information security as far as your computers are concerned and so on. So it's staying abreast of that kind of information and providing education to your people, and we help offer a lot of that education.
Many times. Just last week, I created a social media policy and sent it out to all my non-delegateds and suggested they incorporate that into their quality control plan.
And by the way, the regulators really like to see that you're working that plan all the time. So if you haven't been audited in a couple of years, they don't want to see the same plan that you gave them 5 years ago, because things change. So we need to stay current at all times.
Agreed. As a lender for a non-delegated customer, we are the outsourced underwriting, we're the outsourced product development, we're the outsourced secondary. And what we teach our non-dels to do is to make relationships with, as an example, Greg and Valby here in Houston does a fantastic job. They do the CDs, they prepare the closing documents, they order wires, they do the funding. They also follow up on all of the post-closing conditions. This, if you had to hire somebody to do each of those things, that's a lot of salaries. Instead, you outsource it and pay a fee per loan. And that is the beauty of being a non-delegated correspondent, is low overhead, high returns.
We've been in the business, Jillian and I together, I would say, 30 years between the two of us. And during that period of time, we've developed relationships with a lot of different vendors and business partners. Flagstar offers a warehouse line of credit, but many of our prospective non-delegated correspondents, they're not eligible for that at first. We'll grow you into that, but we have a relationship with one of the best warehouse providers for our market, which is First Funding. Greg and Valby, as Jillian said, is a great business partner. We've developed relationships with AMCs throughout the area that we know are quality people. So we can bring that to you to help you develop those relationships. Non-commissionable revenue is the service release premium that is made by the banker after the loan has been closed and we purchase that loan from you.
That non-commissionable revenue does not show up on any disclosures because it has nothing to do with the borrower. It has everything to do with the mortgage company selling a loan to another mortgage company. So that revenue does not show up in borrower disclosures. It doesn't, quite frankly, it doesn't need to be shared with any other party other than the owner of the mortgage company. So in a fixed office, like a large delegated correspondent lender, you've got underwriters on staff, quality control, you've got your controllers, you've got your closers, your funders, your post-closers, your secondary marketing, you've got your wire clerks, pre-funding QC, post-funding QC, shipping. The list goes on and on and on. In a variable cost business model, all of those services are outsourced by the non-delegated correspondent.
Why would you become a delegated correspondent in this environment, paying salaries that you don't need to pay? It just doesn't make sense today. The difference between being a delegated correspondent and a non-delegated correspondent is the cost to produce a single loan. So when you're a delegated correspondent, you're paying everyone at every level to get to a final clear to close, from the processors to the originators, to the underwriters, to the closers, to the shippers, and a whole lot of other people in between. Those are all salaries that are being paid every day, no matter how much business is coming through the door. In the non-delegated world, those things are outsourced. At Flagstar, we do the underwriting for you. We do the QC. So you're not paying salaries, and when volume goes down, you're not paying people to produce that loan for you when you can outsource that.
Probably the biggest difference is just overhead. In a delegated correspondent operation, you've got a tremendous level of employee engagement, such as underwriting, quality control, product development. Typically, it's a long list of services that in a non-delegated relationship, those are all outsourced, whether they're outsourced to Flagstar as your investor. We can perform the QC, we perform the underwriting, we perform the post-closing review, and you outsource everything in the middle.